In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Soulmate Trigger. As you're probably aware, there is an incredible program coming up that I call the Soulmate Trigger, where I'm going to teach you how to get somebody to have an attraction and a connection with you that is so deep that they consider that you might be their soulmate. And today I want to explain just what the Soulmate Trigger is and why it's one of the most powerful things you can do to generate and build a relationship, a connection, and attraction with somebody. Now, I have actually had a lot of questions from people saying to me, why can't you just give us access to the program right now rather than all of this build up and hype? The videos that I've been releasing prior to the program being released are all designed to get you up to speed to use the Soulmate Trigger effectively. I don't want to spend time away from my own family to create this incredible program for people if you're not actually going to get the most out of it. All of the different videos that you watch before this program, including this one right here, are designed to give you all the information that you need to learn to effectively use the Soulmate Trigger in the way that it's intended, which is great news because by the very end of this video, you will be 100% ready to use the Soulmate Trigger to its full effect. Now, I promise you that you're going to see an incredible effect in your dating life when you start using it. In fact, it's so incredibly powerful that I can guarantee that you will not regret the time that you've spent watching this video or any of the previous videos, or in fact going through the Soulmate Trigger. I'm going to be teaching some of the most powerful psychological dating tips that can make somebody genuinely feel that you are their soulmate. In fact, in today's video, I'm going to explain how these same techniques work and how I'll be sharing with you the things that get people so attracted to you are actually very similar to the things that get people addicted to gambling. And in fact, it's also the reason why I believe that Romeo and Juliet stayed with each other in Shakespeare's famous play. We're going to talk about a little bit about that later on and about the story behind that. And trust me, it's totally worth understanding this element of human psychology. In this video, I want to share with you a technique that is known as advanced qualification, because a big part of the Soulmate Trigger is actually learning how to use advanced qualification in a different way. Now, different dating experts, different experts out there teach qualification differently, and I want to explain it to you in the way that it was taught to me, which is essentially the way that people use it in sales. As far as I'm concerned, I like to use the term qualification in the mainstream way that most people on this planet use it, the way that people will be able to relate to, which will give you the idea of qualifying somebody like you would qualify a prospect from a sales point of view. You can think about this for your dating life like you have dating prospects, almost like a salesperson would have potential customers, and you have potential dating customers. And these are people that you might like today. And you don't necessarily want to just date every single amazing and attractive person that you meet because, I don't know, they could be an axe murderer for all you know, right? It doesn't matter how beautiful they are. Nobody wants to be dating a freaking axe murderer. Even if they don't hurt you, you always run the risk that they might hurt one of your friends, or worse, you end up with your partner getting caught and going to jail, and then you have to deal with the fact that your partner is now in jail. Actually, just looking back, did I really just say that your partner going to jail is worse than hurting all your friends? I actually completely got that wrong. But the point is, you understand that you have to qualify different people that you're meeting in your life because you don't want to deal with either of these situations. You don't want to just be like, oh, you're so attractive and beautiful, you'll do just fine. No, you don't want to just start dating people based on that. The concept of qualifying is acting like you are the prize and that you value something more than just somebody's physical attractiveness. Now, this concept of being the prize is something that's spoken about by many other dating experts. I'll talk about it in books and in various videos. People often say be the prize, make sure you're the prize. But what does it mean to be the prize? I actually find that many students struggle with this concept. They don't know how to be the prize, and that affects them. So I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh yeah, I like the idea of being the prize, but if they don't want to have me, then how can I be a prize if they get me, right? What people mean by being the prize is trying to take a position of being the chooser rather than the choosee. You want to be the one that says, yes, I want you, and no, I don't want you. Not sure about you. I think about it for a little bit. Maybe I'll make that decision later on. You want to put yourself in the position of being the person that gets to choose. And that's what it means when you're qualifying people. You're qualifying to see if they're worthwhile, right? You're asking them questions that identify whether they are somebody that you even want to be having a relationship with or not. Advanced qualification is doing the exact same thing, but using it to identify something specific about somebody. So rather than just being general, we're going to learn a specific piece of information. For example, a very typical old school dating technique is saying to people, are you good at cooking? And this is like a very classic dating technique from back in the day. So going up to somebody and being like, are you good at cooking? And if they respond with, yeah, I'm good at cooking. And then you'll be like, great, I've been looking for somebody who's good at cooking. And essentially what you're doing is they've got themselves to identify themselves as being somebody who can cook, and they've technically qualified themselves. But this is like a really basic beginner level, and of course most people can cook, so it really isn't that effective, and it's not the stuff that I like teaching. I enjoy teaching the really advanced techniques and explain exactly how to understand what's going on in somebody's mind when you're using these different techniques and what it is specifically that's making them work. And to look at that, we actually need to look at Cialdini, who wrote an incredible book called Influence. And this book is all about how we influence each other's decisions. And he said that people like to be congruent to themselves. So if somebody says they will do something, then they'll often continue to take action that supports what they just said. Now, if we combine congruency with advanced qualification, an amazing thing happens. Because if somebody qualifies themselves, then that they will do something, then they will typically be congruent to that and actually carry out that action. And this is where you can actually have a really good time when you're going out there and meeting people once this becomes conscious. Because if you can qualify somebody to agree to do something like hanging out with you, and it's something they genuinely want to do, going on a date with you, and they confirm it and they say, yes, I'm going to do it, the chance of them actually doing that thing significantly increases. And the chances of them flaking and not turning up on the date essentially drops and completely vanishes. And essentially you've just managed to set up a situation where somebody is confirming that they want to hang out with you and they want to be with you. All you have to do is learn how to advance qualify them correctly. Now, in order to give you an idea of how this works, and as a lead up to the Soulmate Trigger program, I want to tell you a story about a student of mine who came with me to work one Valentine's Day a few years ago. Now, he's one of my live training students, and these people like him, pay a lot of money to learn from me. So I always make sure to teach them the most effective techniques, which of course I'm now going to share with you as well. So on this particular Valentine's Day, he turned up and he wanted to learn how to attract somebody on that exact day. And I said to him, I have a mission for him. I didn't want to teach him just some random technique on this day. Instead, I wanted him to try something completely different. I wanted him to apply the concept of advanced qualification with one very specific goal. I wanted him to guarantee that he managed to have an intimate situation with somebody that very day. So what we're talking about is waking up Valentine's Day morning, being completely single, having no prospects, nobody that you know, and he's from Chicago and he actually came to train with me in Los Angeles, so he really didn't know anybody. And I said I want him to go out, I want him to meet somebody and start having dates during Valentine's Day with that person and have such a strong connection that that night, that person is desperate to rip his clothes off and have a wild adventure with him, that they're so inspired and so connected that they lead things. Now, of all days, Valentine's Day is actually the best chance for somebody to pull this off. And the reason it's so much easier to pull it off on Valentine's Day is because there is an expectation in someone's mind that they won't be single by the end of the day. Of course, that's not always guaranteed, but it's kind of what they want. And it's one of the few times in the year that modern media and society actually benefits you, because the stereotype that somebody shouldn't be alone on Valentine's Day means that the chances of people being willing to hook up for a chance encounter on that day, assuming they're single, significantly increases. If you know how to trigger the soulmate trigger, then it happens even easier. But in order to do that, you do need to understand this concept of advanced qualification. And so I broke down his mission as follows. His first goal was to find people who are single on Valentine's Day. So he went to hotel lobbies and he went to a couple of shopping malls to try and find people that were single. And sure enough, he found the best success came from the hotel lobbies, which is exactly what I told him at the beginning of the day. I don't even know why he bothered going to the shopping mall, but whatever. He wanted to go to the shopping mall, so he did, and he found that it just wasn't worth his time. You see, chances are that people that go to a shopping mall on Valentine's Day are probably not single. If you think about it, compared to a hotel lobby, anybody that you meet in a hotel lobby who's hanging out in a hotel lobby on Valentine's Day is probably single, or at least single at that exact moment, because they're in a hotel and they're not hanging out with, other people. And because they're typically from out of town or traveling around, or they're in a hotel for a conference or a business thing, whatever the situation is, the chance of them being single is significantly higher, because obviously if they were in a relationship, they'd want to be with their loved one that day. So sure enough, he met somebody that was single in a hotel lobby and he started the advanced qualification technique. Now, when you're doing advanced qualification, you're essentially trying to lead somebody down a funnel, right? The first advanced qualifications are going to be aimed at identifying what kind of person somebody is, but then you're going to shift into creating the kind of qualities or qualifying for the kind of qualities that you want and you want to see, and essentially move towards giving them choices. And so let me give you an example of this to try and simplify it for you. If I said to you, do you want to be lame or do you want to be awesome? Which of these two things do you think you would say you want to be? And obviously you're going to say, well, of course, you want to be awesome, because nobody wants to be lame. No, he's like, you know what? I really want to be lame. And so of course, nobody is going to say that. Essentially, I've qualified you. I've got you to confirm that you want to be the kind of person that is considered awesome. And then if I did it again to you, if I said, do you like being spontaneous, or do you like to be really plain and plan things out and be methodical and boring and just do the same thing over and over again? Which of these would you choose? Once again, it's kind of obvious. You'd probably say spontaneous, right? And even if you're someone who likes planning things, you probably wouldn't admit it because the way it's worded kind of makes that sound lame. And this is a much more advanced tactic. The first example is obvious. You're like, yeah, of course you want to be awesome. I don't want to be boring or what have you, but in the second one, it gets a little bit more complicated because I'm essentially giving the choice of being spontaneous or being someone that thinks things out and is considered boring. You see, I can even use my tone to make it even sound boring. So I can be like, do you want to be spontaneous, or are you someone who's kind of boring and just does the same kind of planned out things? And by dragging it out and I'm saying, oh yeah, someone that plans ahead and thinks too much about things sounds boring, I'm setting it up in a way that lends people more towards being spontaneous. Now, being somebody who pre-plans things isn't necessarily bad, but by the way that I've described it, I've kind of made it seem that way. And I could have just as easily said, you know, do you want to be somebody who's spontaneous and reckless and does all these dumb things that gets you in trouble? Or do you want to be somebody that plans ahead and thinks things through and ensures that you have a great time? And this is exactly the same question. All I'm doing is worded it differently and I'm adding emphasis in different places. When you're doing advanced qualification, it's all about learning how to word things and how to present the things that you say. You're essentially presenting two options. One of them you present like normal, and the other is presented in an absolute negative way. And when you do it like this, you're leading somebody down a path. You're showing them the path that you'd like them to take. Now, it's essentially a regular conversation. The only difference is there's an actual goal. And somebody is more than capable of just saying, you know what, actually I do like being planned, and that's absolutely fine, and they can move on. That's not somebody you want to be with. But if somebody is showing that they are interested in those things, and of course you're trying to show clearly the things that you want them to say, then they're going to identify that and it's going to make a stronger connection. My student is just having a regular conversation with somebody he met, and he starts leading her down this path. So one of the first things that he says is this. He says, do me a favor and tell me you're not doing that sad thing where you're actually in a relationship with somebody and yet you're not spending Valentine's Day with them, because that would just be lame. If you're in that situation where you're in a relationship with somebody, but you're completely stuck on your own somewhere else, that would suck, and I would feel really bad for you. Now, this advanced qualification is perfect, and of course, it's a lot more advanced than some of the examples that I gave earlier. He's basically presenting the fact that if she's in a relationship, he would feel bad for her, and of course, in that situation, she would be qualified out of the scenario. And this is the first part of this advanced qualification tactic. Essentially, it's going to make her stick up for the fact that she's in a relationship, which would qualify him out of the situation. And of course, he can then move on without, wasting his time. And if she says something like, yeah, I'm in a relationship and I'm going to see my partner later on, then he can just say, okay, awesome, thank you so much, that's great. And he can move on and meet somebody else. At which point she will have qualified herself out of the conversation, and he's not into having some long drawn out conversation that lasts hours where he's hoping there's going to be a connection, only to find out that she was just, using him to occupy her time, and that later on she's going to go on a date with her husband or boyfriend or what have you. And so hopefully you can already see just how powerful this is, because even right now at the beginning, you're basically not wasting your time. You're leading people away from you that you just shouldn't be hanging out with or getting into a relationship with anyway. And because you're taking such an aggressive stance against their relationship, the people that are in a relationship are going to push back against you, and they're going to go and enjoy that relationship and just have nothing to do with you, which actually saves you time and energy. And if you're trying to attract somebody on Valentine's Day, you're trying to make something happen rapidly, time becomes very important. 2 hours wasted in the middle of the day, talking to somebody that actually doesn't have any interest in being with you, but they're just playing along because they're bored, is actually a significant portion of your day that you could have used to meet somebody who genuinely would want to be with you. And so once he set this up, he can discover that the person he's talking to is single, which is exactly what happened for him. And so now he can bond over the fact that it's Valentine's Day and enjoy the fact that both of them are single. They can just have a regular conversation. And this is where you would continue building attraction exactly as normal, using any of the techniques that we teach in the Soulmate Trigger or any of my other programs that you've been following. And by the way, this is probably where I should say that if you don't know how to build attraction simply and easily, don't worry about it, because it truly is all contained inside the Soulmate Trigger seminar. And I'll tell you how you can gain access to that seminar and the entire program, which literally teaches step-by-step how to get somebody to want to be with you. And of course, how to increase your own attraction so that you're naturally attracting the kind of people that you really desire. Now, at this point, my student knew that he needed to move them to a different location or to do something different just to get a change of scenery. And the reason for that is explained why in full within the Soulmate Trigger program. But I will give you a little bit of a summary right now. It's very important because if you just stay in the same spot when you first meet somebody, then they're going to end up getting bored. And it's something that we spoke about in an earlier video. You're essentially not not creating an experience, right? You're just dragging something out. But if you can take somebody and you go to different situations, you actually create a much more emotional experience because they're traveling from one place to somewhere else with you, and it almost makes them feel like they're bonding with you. You know, you're not just that stranger they met in that bar, but now you're that person they met in the bar who now has gone on to do this other experience. And it's a very powerful psychological technique known as the boundary effect or event boundary, which is essentially when you walk through a doorway with someone, they feel that because they've entered a room with you, that they'll actually feel like they're part of a team with you, right? You came into that room together. Now, this is something that you may actually have experienced in the past, although in reverse. If you've ever been in a room and thought, wow, I need to grab something from the kitchen, but then when you get up and walk into the kitchen, you're suddenly like, wait, I don't remember why I've come into this room. What am I doing here? What did I need? And that's because human beings tend to keep our visual memories locked inside rooms. So although you were in your living room and in the living room, you knew what you needed and you remembered it and you remembered that it was in the kitchen, once you walk in the kitchen, it was an object that you no longer needed in the kitchen. And because your kitchen memories have now been activated, you can't really recall what it is that you need because you don't need the object in the kitchen, you need the object in the living room. And actually walking into the new room has your brain accessing all these different memories and it's shut down all the other ones. So you have no idea why you walked into the kitchen because, as I said, it's a living room problem. Now, this psychological phenomenon is the exact same thing that happens when you walk through a doorway with somebody that you're dating. So you may have been a stranger when you first met, but once you enter a new area together, they completely forget that you're a stranger and they believe that the two of you have always been in this new situation together in this new room. And the only memories of this new room are memories of you going in there together, so it almost feels like you guys have bonded. And if you do this, you're essentially qualifying them a little bit more and getting them to believe and feel even more that the two of you have a congruent situation of being together. And they feel comfortable walking into that room with you, so they feel a little bit more bonded with you, and that cycle continues. And because they like you, they're going to continue to be congruent to the feeling and they're going to continue to be nice to you. And this whole thing becomes a wonderful thing that gets you tighter and tighter and tighter. So I hope you're staying with me on this. Now, I know I'm getting a little bit technical, but I really want to treat you the same way that I teach my high-end private students. Now, I've actually had a lot of people ask me to share more of my advanced techniques. And so I thought I'd give you this demonstration and explain it. And actually, this is the reason that a lot of the best dating experts in the world still end up hiring me to create their advanced techniques and content. That's why you may have seen my face on lots of other dating programs, because the stuff that I teach my private clients is the stuff that helps them get results, and they get the results incredibly quickly. And the best part is that the techniques that I'm going to be sharing with you inside the Soulmate Trigger are even easier to learn, and they're actually much more powerful. So if you understood everything I just shared with you and you could see how it could benefit you, then you're definitely not going to want to miss out on the Soulmate Trigger because it's right up your alley. So, and of course, we delve a lot more into the boundary effect and all those other cool things as well. So let's get back to the story of the student. He took the person to go and get some food, and they kept talking and they were having a great interaction, and then he starts using even more advanced qualification. So after eating, he says to them, look, I'm curious. What kind of a person are you? Are you someone who likes to take risks? Or are you someone that even though you don't live with your parents anymore, you still just set yourself a curfew? Again, this is a stacked question. Of course, they respond by saying that they love taking new risks because the idea of, having a curfew from your parents just doesn't sound like anything that somebody wants to admit. And actually, she adds something even further. She said that she loves doing fun things, and that she never gives herself a curfew, and so by default, she's agreeing to being somebody who likes going out and doing fun things. And at this point, he says, look, you know what? It's Valentine's Day. We've got nothing else better to do. Why don't we go and have a fun day? We can go to Santa Monica Pier, we can do some rides, and we can just make some fun out of our day rather than just having another boring day, sitting in our hotel and maybe doing some work on our laptop. He then continues by saying, it's completely up to you, but I would love to do this. And I think that whether you come or not, I'm gonna go and do it. My question is, do you wanna come with me? Now, what's powerful here is he'd already used advanced qualification to confirm that this is somebody who likes taking risks, being spontaneous and doing fun things. So you see how clever this is. Before asking him to join him on the adventure of fun, he already got them to confirm that she likes doing fun things and she likes, being spontaneous. If the idea of her going to Santa Monica to hang out on the pier sounds something that would be fun and spontaneous, then she's already said that that's an activity that she would like to do, even though she didn't know all the little details. So she's pretty much already, convinced herself before she even knows what she's saying, that she's going to agree with him and this is something that she's likely to do. He has preemptively solved a future problem by planning in advance. And that's the power of advanced qualification. You're qualifying them in advance. you're letting somebody deal with a situation before the situation even arrives. Once they confirm that they're someone that likes being fun and doing spontaneous things, they're much more likely to accept the idea of doing something fun and spontaneous. And she's already admitted that she likes doing this. So the minute the situation comes up and she's thinking about it, she doesn't need to sit down and think about it because she's already decided the kind of person she is and what she wants to do. And that's somebody who's fun, likes being spontaneous and doing awesome random new things. So she says, fuck it, I am gonna go to Santa Monica with you and I'm gonna have some fun. He's not saying, do you wanna be my girlfriend? He didn't say to her, do you want to be my Valentine's? No, he just assumed that all of that is going to happen later on. And instead he just said, do you want to go and have a fun experience? Which is exactly what I've been discussing with you in this and all of those other videos. So now they're sitting on Santa Monica on the pier and they're not having a romantic dinner date. They're having fun. They're playing arcade games. They're playing those things where, you throw the ball and you try and knock the clowns down. I don't know what it's called, but you see it at fairgrounds. And they don't go down because it's all rigged or whatever it is in those games, and it doesn't matter because they're having fun, right? They're going on the roller coaster. They're going on the big Ferris wheel. They're having a date. They're having an experience. They're being spontaneous and they're having fun. And now bear in mind, this is actually the second date that they've had in that day because the first date they went on, they bounced out to go and grab some food. So they're having an incredible experience. And of course, she's having a lot of fun with him and she's associating that fun with him, which is making her like him even more. And at that point, he suggested, hey, let's go and bounce and get some dessert. And so they go and get dessert in a bar and then they spend the rest of their night in that bar, having drinks, chatting to each other. And of course, she ends up spending the entire day with him, even though they only just met. Now, they've been to 3 or 4 different dates within the one day. So she's actually got a lot of different visual memories of hanging out with him, going to different rooms and different areas, which of course with the boundary effect really builds out that depth of that relationship. And it makes her feel like there's a much stronger connection than if they'd just stayed in the hotel lobby at the beginning of the day. And of course, there's the fact that it's Valentine's Day and, she deserves to have some romance or a romantic interaction. So when he says to her, do you know what? I want to show you this really cool video on YouTube. Why don't we bounce back to my room and I can show it to you? She thinks about it for a minute and then she's like, sure, why not? She has no reason not to trust him. They've spent an entire day doing awesome, fun things. And of course, that means that she's much more likely to go and do this with him because of the amount of time they've spent together. After all, she's already agreed to go to 4 or 5 different places with him. And every single time that she's done that, everything's been great. So why not go to his room to look at a video on YouTube that he says is really funny? Of course, she's going to trust him to do that because he's built up that trust by being trustworthy. Notice again, he didn't say, hey, let's go back to my room so we can sleep with each other. That would just be weird and add too much pressure. He's like, let's just go back to the room and watch a YouTube video. Now, he could have said, let's go and have sex if she was showing major signs of sexual interest, but she wasn't, and he doesn't want to put her in an awkward situation. They're just having fun, and so he's suggesting going back to the bedroom to watch a fun YouTube video. Now, when they get back to the room, they start watching videos, and of course, the videos start off really normal, typical YouTube stuff, but eventually they start finding things that are a little bit more risky, a little bit more sexual. And this is a simple technique that I taught him in one of our training sessions. If you want some really good suggestions for YouTube videos, by the way, try and find the original music video to Daydream by iMonster. I almost guarantee you know the song. It's like, daydream, I dream of you amid the flowers. But when you watch that video, you're gonna find that it's actually quite X-rated. But the best part is that this is a song that many people really do know, and they don't know that it's X-rated. So if you're showing somebody YouTube videos and you start looking at fun music videos like, I don't know, epic rap battles of history or whatever it is that you want to watch, you can then say, oh my gosh, do you know this song? Tell them that the video is really insane and X-rated. Once you start playing it, it brings up some really nice sexual context that you can use to set a much more sexual tone into the room, which is essentially what my student did. He just guided somebody through a sequence of videos that are designed to create a situation where she can feel comfortable going to different areas with him. So essentially, the entire thing that my student did was take somebody through a sequence of situations where they felt comfortable at each step, never pushing them beyond what they feel comfortable with. He guided them through the entire day where she was comfortable going to different areas with him so that he could essentially bring her back to his hotel room and then do a little bit of escalation by watching YouTube videos that get a little bit riskier and riskier until the entire nature gets more sexual. And at any point, she's free to stop him from doing this if she doesn't like it, but of course, because it's progressing in exactly the right way, there's no need for her to stop it because it's something she wants to happen as well. Now, I'm rushing through this very quickly and I'm not going to into as much detail as I could because I want to keep this video to the point and the key element of advanced qualification. Now, what he didn't do was pull the soulmate trigger. What he did do was an incredible attraction and organize an amazing date. Now, if you want to learn how to do just a basic attraction situation with a hell of a lot of effort, then the technique that I just taught you will absolutely work. It's just gonna take a lot of time and effort to learn all those skills. But it doesn't get somebody to wake up in the morning and think, wow, this is the person that I wanna be with for the rest of my life. This is the person that, I feel that could be my soulmate. It's gonna make them feel like, you know what, I had fun, that was great. I actually like this guy, and maybe I'll talk to them again, but I'm gonna go back to my real world tomorrow, and so that was a wonderful Valentine's Day experience, but I don't know if I want it to continue. I don't really need to tell anybody about it. It was great, but now I'm gonna move on with my life. If instead he'd tripped the soulmate trigger at the end of it, she would have felt that this was an incredible, wonderful, romantic situation, and she would have ended up, desperate to want to forge that relationship with him. And she would be talking about future plans. She'd be wanting to set up some time to meet again, and she would be incredibly loyal to him. And she would have wanted to make sure that that situation continued and that they remained in each other's lives. But the advanced qualification is still a key part of understanding the Soulmate Trigger package, and it's why I wanted to make sure I taught you this before I teach the incredible techniques that I'm going to share with you in the upcoming Soulmate Trigger program. Now, you are 100% not going to want to miss out on this, because I kid you not, I'm going to be sharing absolutely everything in the Soulmate Trigger program that I can possibly teach you to use this powerful psychological technique. But now I do want to give you the bad news. The Soulmate Trigger program may not be around forever. The old version of the program has actually been unavailable for years. This one is brand new, updated for 2020, and it will be available for this week, but I don't know how long we're going to keep it up for. And the reason for that is, programs like this, we don't really want to end up going wild and getting into the mainstream. We like it to stay just for our core students, and so it's something that we're only going to leave up for a short while. So don't make the mistake of missing it, okay? Or saving the link and thinking you're gonna watch it later. Between you and me, I've got a whole bunch of projects that I work on, and in fact, I've actually got a bunch of feature films that I've downloaded from freaking Amazon Prime that I still haven't watched yet, but I've got an intention to watch at some point, and someday I'm sure I will, but that means that I'm not gonna get the benefit of watching those movies today, and I think it's really important that you don't do that you don't, just put like a little notification to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch this later on, because honestly, it won't be around in the future, and I don't want that situation to be you and the Soulmate Trigger. Another reason you're going to want to make sure that you get hold of this program straight away is I'm going to be giving the initial people that grab the Soulmate Trigger a whole bunch of bonuses and discounts that go away rapidly after the program is released. I'm going to be doing this at such a ridiculously high discount, in fact 85% off the total package compared to what I normally charge, that I only want people that are highly motivated. I want to get people that I can use maybe for testimonials who are like, oh my God, I listened to Adam and it completely turned my life around. I want to get people that I like to think of as ambassadors that can go out into the world, and I want them to be able to say like, you know what, I worked with Adam for a month learning this program and it's incredible. I want you to be able to go and tell me that your life was changed for the better. I would love for you to take part in this full 30-day live training program that I'm going to be doing with the Soulmate Trigger, and I'm going to tell you even more about that once we release the program. And this is the reason that you can't miss out on this, okay? So this is the very last video before the Soulmate Trigger launch seminar, which talks about the 3 ways that your childhood holds you back from your dating life and getting the dating life that you want, you deserve, and you should have, and exactly what you need to do to fix it. And then I'm going to invite you to join the Soulmate Trigger program. Now, you are 100% not going to want to miss out on the next video, so let me explain just some of how powerful this technique is and why it works so well. I said at the beginning of this video that I would explain how the Soulmate Trigger connects to gambling and to these other parts of the human brain. Do you know why gamblers start gambling in the casino and then they start betting money and what have you, and then they start losing that money and then they all try and win it back? That is a psychological phenomenon that casinos are well aware of and they play into. You see, the casino encourages people to continue to spend their money. They encourage them to try and look like winners and think that they did great, to make people think that they might actually be able to win their money back, and it keeps people hooked. It keeps them continuing to go down that path and put more and more time and more money in to try and win the money back that they've lost. And that psychological trigger is exactly the same kind of thing that works within the Soulmate Trigger. I'm going to teach you how to trigger that in a relationship so that you and them both get so hooked and addicted to want to spend time with each other that it just feels like an incredible deep bond. And as I said earlier, I think this is exactly the same thing that Shakespeare knew about and wrote about in Romeo and Juliet. And I'm aware that it's a fake story, but the point is the essence of that story that Shakespeare wrote is exactly the same. Juliet stayed with Romeo even though she knew that his house and her house didn't want to be together. Why? Why would she risk absolutely everything for this guy? For love? Sure. But what about that love? Why couldn't she just go out and meet somebody else? Why did it have to be Romeo? It had to be Romeo because the soulmate trigger that's been activated and she needed it to be him. You can think of it like this. While everybody else is trying to pull them apart, she and he were trying to pull themselves together. And the act of them constantly forcing it together is what made them want to be together, because they had this deep-seated belief that they needed to make this happen. If everybody else was just like, whatever, you can just date each other, the chance of them falling apart actually increases because no one else cares about it. And because everybody around them was so desperate to pull them apart, that's what bonded them and made them want to work at being together. And that is the power of the soulmate trigger. Look, just think about this for a moment. Have you ever been having an argument with somebody, and let's be real here, right? And you suddenly realize that you were wrong and the other person was completely right, and you're just arguing completely the wrong argument the entire time, and yet you didn't give up. You just kept going, hoping that you'd win anyway. And that is the exact kind of thing that I'm talking about with the soulmate trigger. It's that same thing, that stubborn desire to continue pushing, even though you knew you were probably wrong or you shouldn't be doing it anyway. And once you trip the soulmate trigger in somebody, this is what happens. It makes both of you think, you know what, I'm gonna stay in this no matter what, because you're both pulling together. And it doesn't matter if you make a mistake. It doesn't matter if you belch over dinner. It doesn't matter if you do something wrong in a small way. Obviously, they're gonna make sure they want to stay with you because they believe that this is the relationship they should be in. They fight harder, they work harder, and they are more loyal to making this relationship work because they believe in a higher thing. This relationship has a bigger purpose. And this is the key to making sure that you can maintain relationships with people and make sure that they last for a very long time. To having committed relationships where you know for a fact that your partner is not going to cheat on you or move on to somebody else because they're so connected to maintaining a relationship with you. And this is the stuff that I'm going to be talking about. So do not miss out on this seminar, because ultimately the entire reason I'm doing this is because I do want to find a small group of people that can come and work with me, and so that I can use them as an example of just how great I can make somebody in a very short period of time when it comes to their dating life. So like I said, this program is going to be heavily discounted, but it won't be heavily discounted forever. I am very, very excited about sharing this with you. This is literally the thing that could change your dating life forever. It can take you from being somebody that isn't getting the dates you want or getting to be able to date the kind of people you want to being able to have the perfect dating life. And the best thing is, because the soulmate trigger is online, you can do it from anywhere in the world. You don't have to come and see me in my office in Texas. You don't have to worry about where you are. You just have to make sure that you don't miss out on the seminar. And so it's very important that you keep looking out for that link when it comes up, where I'm going to break down the 3 ways that your childhood can hold you back, and of course the 1 thing that you can do about it to stop your bad past messing up your current relationships and get you access to the Soulmate Trigger program. Don't miss out.